Alright, we are recording, and I have to be quick with this. Hang on. I normally try to have that light on, and I forgot to turn it on. Yeah, for chapter 22, I have to be quick, though, because dinner is probably going to be in, like, 10, 15 minutes or so. Which is disappointing, because there's actually quite a few things. Not many may trigger a rant, though. Okay, so I did not remember this from the movie. Jar Jar voting, well, making the motion for Palpatine to be given emergency powers so then he can command the clone army, basically sidestepping the Military Creation Act, since the military already exists, the army already exists. It is... I'm pretty sure... Yeah, it's in Palpatine's office. I think once I was reading it, I was kind of remembering it, and I think in the movie, it is in the Senate chambers. Like, the whole thing is there that he does this. Whereas here it's, in Palpatine's office, Yoda, Mace Windu, and Ki-Adi-Mundi are there, because they were giving the report. Bail Organa, there we go. I was trying to remember his first name. Senator for Alderaan. And another senator, Ashak, were there. But the thing is, they are both men of action, essentially, so the Senate would be like, yeah, well, they just want something to happen, we don't really trust them. Whereas Jar Jar is known as subordinate to Padme, such that if he says something, it's her saying it, that he is going to speak with her voice. So she would be against this, so by Jar Jar saying it, it is very significant and everyone will listen. But what is interesting, Mas Amedda is Palpatine's aide. He's the one that suggested, not Palpatine. And also, after Jar Jar does this, and it's like, okay, yeah, the vote will go through. Palpatine nodded grimly, and Yoda sensed a strong fear from the man, as if he knew that he was about to be thrust forward in the most dangerous position he and the Republic had ever known. While it is possible that Palpatine is pretending and Yoda is just not picking up on that, I actually think it is very possible, because I'd been, even when I first read this, I'll get to some more in a moment, but earlier I was saying about how it seemed like potentially Dooku was actually a third party, was aware of Palpatine being Sidious, and can't really expose him because that wouldn't necessarily help, people wouldn't believe him, but is trying to do the Separatist movement to counter the Sith Lord. In which case then, no, Palpatine would legitimately be afraid here. He does not want this war because that may endanger him and his plans. Which also, this technically means then that Palpatine might not have an apprentice yet, because it isn't Dooku, so who would it be? Or do we just consider the relationship he's been forming with Anakin as that, even though he's not formally an apprentice? Don't know. But later on, there is more about Dooku, his motivations, at least what he's telling us. He could be lying for some of it, but I think it is best to interpret him as a man that lies very rarely. That he tells the truth. He may not tell the whole truth. That would be the main lie of omission from him. But he will not just straight up tell you a falsehood. Because that should be the level he operates at, I believe, and it's also one that makes him more sure of himself. Like, he is somebody that he can't be wrong. I can believe he would change his mind, but it's more so, he wouldn't be like, yep, change my mind. He would be more like, no, I'm doing it this way. Very slowly and gradually, and in a way where it seems like he's actually always been going straight. So, yeah. Okay. Dooku does confirm that Qui-Gon was his apprentice. And I'm annoyed because I remember that from the movie, but earlier in the book, we've had multiple opportunities when it could have been acknowledged that Obi-Wan knew this, because why wouldn't Obi-Wan know? I mean, there are... I'm trying to remember what it is, but there are certain vocation type things where you actually do know who was that trained you and who was that trained them and trained them and trained. They can go back for generations, like dozens of generations, hundreds of years, thousands of years even. That is an actual thing. And it's not unreasonable that the Jedi would be keeping that record, but certainly just basically Grandpa, Obi-Wan should have known that, and that should have been brought up earlier, not left for here. I mean, it's one of those, this is a detail that isn't necessarily too significant. I mean, yes, the relationship is important, but only when those two meet. So it could be brought up earlier, and then it's, oh yeah, that's right, we already learned that, now let's see this interplay. That would have been good, but we don't have it here. To be fair, that could be more so on the movie than on the author here, because it might have been a, well, no, we want that revealed later. Not a good reason, because, yeah, anyway. I'm sorry, but movie novelizations, I feel, should have some freedom to deviate from the movie if it still is largely consistent, largely coherent. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. And I'm going to start combining, because some of this comes from when Dooku is talking with Obi-Wan, some of it from when he's talking with Padme. When he's talking with Obi-Wan, he does actually say that he learned about Darth Sidious being the Sith Lord from the Viceroy. That it was after the Phantom Menace, Newt Gunray is being taken to different places, having to talk, and he is basically trying to throw Darth Sidious on the bus. No, it wasn't my fault. I was just doing what he was saying. He was manipulating me. Tell me more. Well, tell us more. I'll get to that shortly. Yes, this is Darth Sidious. He is a Sith Lord, and Dooku does state that it was, well, hey, it's actually right here. The Viceroy of the Trade Federation was once in league with this Darth Sidious. But he was betrayed 10 years ago by the Dark Lord. He came to me for help. He told me everything. Okay? And it's also, yeah, before this was, what if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lords of the Sith? That hit Obi-Wan as profoundly as any of the electric bolts holding him ever could. No, that's not possible. The Jedi would be aware of it. The dark side of the Force has clouded their vision, my friend. Hundreds of Senders are now under the influence of a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious. Okay? So he has learned this from Newt Gunray, which makes his still being alive make a lot more sense, because it's helpful for that. But here's where I stopped and where it's very important. Hang on a second. So he came to me for help. He told me everything. The Jedi Council would not believe him. I tried many times to warn them, but they wouldn't listen to me. Once they sense the Dark Lord's presence and realize their error, it will be too late. You must join with me, Obi-Wan, and together we will destroy the Sith. So, yeah. So yes, he is trying to sway Obi-Wan, but I think it's reasonable to believe everything he's saying here is true. He may be leaving things out, as I said, but it's still, the Jedi Council would not believe him. So Dooku is saying that the Jedi know about this, but they just don't want to believe it. They're like, no, we serve the Senate, we would know if that were the case. Their own arrogance is leading to this issue. Yeah, that's, and when you think about it, not only, hey, we were told this, but yeah, we don't really believe it. Why is Palpatine still in power? He's past his term limit. I mean, they should be, we're defending the laws of the Republic. Palpatine? Time's up. You gotta get out. Come on. Don't make us force this issue. That is completely reasonable, but never happened. And it is kind of, the whole, they are subject to this corruption as well. But it is still very interesting how, the Jedi Council knew this, apparently. It's never been mentioned, though. Which, on the one hand, I can understand that. It's been 10 years and they don't want to believe it. And also it makes this a bit more weighty. But on the other hand, they've been trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, oh yes, the dark side is clouding it for us, so we can't really know what's going on. It's like, you never bring up that, well, don't forget that he said that he was controlling the Senate. Yeah. Now, skipping ahead a little bit to when he's talking with Padme. The Chancellor means well, milady, but he is incompetent. He has promised to cut the bureaucracy, but the bureaucrats are stronger than ever. The Republic cannot be fixed, milady. It is time to start over. The democratic process in the Republic is a sham, a game played on the voters. The time will come when that cult of greed called the Republic will lose even the pretext of democracy and freedom. I don't think he knows that Palpatine is Sidious. I really don't. Because why would he be calling him incompetent? There would be other, better words there. that he would use if he were aware and just not wanting to say it, or he would lay it all out. I mean, think about that. He could, if he knew, he'd be able to lay out. And think about it. His term ran out, and he's still there. Why are you tolerating that? If he were to start attacking her in that way, and she is already, some of this stuff is like appealing to her nature of reform, fixing this stuff. He's appealing to that already. If he knew, he could zero in on that, go directly at it for her. But he doesn't. So I don't think he knows. But it's also the way this is written. I'm also pretty sure he is a third party. He is not serving Palpatine. He's not with the Jedi because he knows he can't trust them or the Senate. So he's doing this to try to confound Palpatine's plans. He doesn't know it's Palpatine, but confound Sidious's plans. But there's also the whole, yeah, he's also a tyrant. Because, you know, the turn you over to the Geonosians for justice. It's like, no, this isn't justice. You don't have laws here. You're basically just forming a gang together to do whatever you want. So, I mean, dictatorships can be good in some cases, not all. You can have a dictatorship that isn't tyrannical. It is technically possible. So it's like, if you were setting that up, that's one thing, but that's clearly not what you're doing here. So it is Dooku is also is himself corrupt, is kind of what you're seeing here, and very manipulative. But it is still, as I said, I think a good way to read him is he's not lying for any of this. He's just not saying the whole thing, and he's not going to admit to his own corruption. He may also have a little bit of an ends justify the means kind of thing here, but it's still largely, I would say, he's likely third party, and the war at this point is meant to confound Sidious. It's meant to interrupt his plans than to actually defeat the Republic. I mean, yes, he does believe the Republic is corrupt and would need to be gotten rid of, but I think it is dual purpose there, which then means that between this and Revenge of the Sith, because it certainly does seem like at the end of Revenge of the Sith, well, no, I guess it is just Sidious Palpatine wasn't in control of the droid army at any point. Oh, wait, no, because he sends Anakin, so they are answering to Sidious. So Sidious does somehow take over the Separatists. I wonder how that's going to be explained. Anyway, there's a typo on page 544, which is kind of funny. Instead of C-3PO, it's C3-PO. And it is legitimately funny because it's written correctly above and below. Yeah, you'd really think somebody would have caught that one. So the whole thing with 3PO's head being cut off and a droid head being put on the body and 3PO's head being put onto a droid body. One thing reading this is definitely one of those, yeah, I get the humor of it in the movie, but it doesn't make any technical sense. Like, the mounting itself is completely different. Like, 3PO's neck is shown as being cylindrical. Theirs is like a bar thing that's on a hinge. So that's not possible. And it's also, why would the wiring line up correctly as well? I mean, these aren't standard parts that you'd be changing out. But there's also, I think it is there mainly just, we thought it'd be funny for the movie, now you gotta have it in the book. It's like, but it also does have, after the head is, by the way, it describes it being cut off. Not just knocked off. Yeah, before the spinning blade lopped his head from his shoulders. So it really shouldn't be viable to connect cleanly. But also describes that his body crumpling down onto the belt. But then the next paragraph, he managed to glance to the side to see his still standing body rolling into the line with the other droids. It's like, you just described that he wasn't standing. This is not explained. And this is literally one paragraph to the next, so yeah. Okay, so I actually do only have the one point left here. That is, I have to go by what is written. Anakin's a fool. So he is, it's in the movie. It plays out a little differently, but in the movie, the whole he's having to fight off the Geonosians and all that while in the droid factory. He never uses the Force in the book. He only uses his lightsaber. He does use it to sense, but he never uses it to attack. He's a fool, because it is one of his tools. He should be using it. Now, there's an explanation for this that I'm good with. I can use it for my headcanon, but it's not what's written, so it is wrong. He should be hesitant. Because remember, part of his issue with what happened with the Tuscans is he felt so full and powerful with the Force. He just kept going. He gave into his aggression, but it was also all that power in him. He's like full of power, full of the Force, full of life. So him resisting calling upon the Force, sensing the Force is a little different. I could see that, no, I'll do that because it's helpful. No comment on that, though. I just realized that there was actually one other note I missed writing up. But he really should be, okay. I mean, there should be an explanation of, okay, I don't want to use it because if I start feeling that again, I might lose control, and I might hurt Padme, and I can't do that. Or I'll lose control and I might not come back, kind of thing. It's like, that's perfectly fine. That would be good. It's not written. It's not written in here. There's no explanation for why he doesn't use the Force when surrounded. And it's also like, he was moving a boulder earlier. She's trapped in that thing that's going to have the multimetal poured into it. It's like, okay, use the Force to grab it and yank it away so she's safe. It's like, you could do that, right? There's no explanation for why he doesn't, but it is, as I said, he could just be hesitant. And there is, as I said, I forgot to write in there. I know I wrote it in the Kobo in my notes. Look, whatever happens out there, follow my lead. Padme told him, I'm not interested in getting into a war here. As a member of the Senate, maybe I can find a diplomatic solution to this mess. Don't worry, I've given up trying to argue with you. Now, there's some paragraphs in between. For Anakin, who had so recently used the diplomacy of the lightsaber into devastating effect, the words rang true, painfully so. Trust me on this, Padme added, and he knew that she had recognized the pain on his face. Don't worry, he said, and he made himself grin. I've given up trying to argue with you. So this is very significant and something not really conveyed if all you get is I've given up trying to argue with you. As though, yeah, honey, fine, do whatever you say. I will do whatever you say. It's not that. It is he legitimately doesn't want to have to attack. He is still feeling guilty and he's hesitant. He's hesitating there. And it's you do need that little bit of explanation there, not just the line, which is all we get in the movie. So yeah, I also wanted to point that one out. Okay, hey, under 20 minutes, cool. I guess one other quick thing. Yes, thousands of Jedi across the galaxy. Only 200 would be available to get there was mentioned. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Well, we already know what happens, but we'll see how it's told going forward. Because there's like a little bit more silliness with the 3PO on the droid thing, and it's just, I legitimately do feel that's there just for the humor in the movie, and not because it's actually good storytelling. Because it's not. It isn't. Because it mechanically makes no sense. So, and I care about those mechanics. Anyway, see you next time.